News Prime.
Now, from wherever you're watching in the world, this is Joy News Prime, your most comprehensive 2 hours of television in Ghana. Coming up, electricity producers assure impending shutdown of gas processing plant for 2 weeks should not worsen power supply situation. Pressure group Citizen Ghana sues Attorney General over delay in retrieving judgment debt funds from businessman Alfred Wyoming. Meanwhile, another pressure group, Occupy Ghana, demands answers to 23 questions on government's decision to host 2 former Guantanamo Bay detainees in Ghana.
And in business tonight, the Ghana Revenue Authority directs banks to suspend implementation of tax on income earned from investments by individuals.
And Peasant Farmers Association warned Ghana could be hit with a food crisis as a result of the microfinance scandal, which has denied many farmers access to their working capital. My name is Israel Lai, and over the next 2 hours, I'll also bring you entertainment, sports, and your comments on social media, and a whole lot more. Please stay tuned. The Ministry of Health has begun yellow fever vaccination in some selected communities in the northern region. This follows a recent outbreak of the disease there. 3 persons have died as a result of the outbreak in the West Gonja district.
We had 6 suspected cases that we sent to Accra, and then 4 of them turned presumptive positive, and then we lost 3 of them. And when we did our outbreak investigation, we also collected samples of contacts. That's small contacts. They are all negative. So right now, sensitization is ongoing of deploying bed nets to especially Busunu, the sub-district where this thing occurred. We had a vaccination campaign in the year 2011. Unfortunately, in the Busunu sub-district, the coverage wasn't very good. And also we have migrants populations in this sub-district as Fulani herdsmen and hunters. So we are now trying to actually have a reactive vaccination. But meanwhile, routine vaccinations have stepped up. We try to actually ensure that we reach every child in every district in this sub-district and district. And actually all other neighboring districts that the whole region has actually been alerted. And then we're all doing all that we can to ensure that every child is reached and also able to pick up any suspected cases.
So apart from the children, are we vaccinating the elderly too?
No, the elderly, that is during the reactive vaccination that will do that.
So when is the reactive vaccination?
We are so decided because we will either vaccinate the sub-district or the whole district. And so depending on how our resources the extent that the census, we will vaccinate the entire district or only the sub-district.
Okay. So can you confidently tell us that the situation is under control?
Absolutely, it's under control.
Okay.
It's under control. Yeah.
So can you confirm if the situation is under control?
The situation is under control. Yeah. We're doing all that we can, and we're deploying the bed nets.
It's been exactly a year ago since the fire ravaged the Central Medical Stores in Tema, destroying everything in the warehouse that served medication to lots of hospitals and pharmacies across the country. Hundreds of drugs and medical supplies worth over 300 million cedis were destroyed in the fiery blaze that raged for days, with fire service officials struggling to control it. There were suggestions the fire may have been started deliberately, and Interior Minister Mark Oyongo assured that the culprits will be punished and CCTV cameras installed at sensitive government installations. President Mahama also described it as a national tragedy. 12 months on, government is yet to disclose details of the investigative report on the incident. Health Minister Alex Segbe last year gave assurances the details of the report will be made public soon. He is, however, yet to make good on that pledge. My colleague Kwachi Afrenuema earlier visited the scene and reports.
Memory is so vivid. Exactly a year ago, here at the venue that served as a Central Medical Stores supply building, there was thick smoke emanating from the building far all over the premises. Dozens of fire service officials at the venue as well who struggled to control the fire that raged on for more than 5 days. Today, the scene is completely different. You can see there the building is close to media entry, but this was the site that had drugs scattered all over. You had combustible materials like condoms and boxes of some of the medicine also scattered all over the floor. But today, it's completely different. And this information I've gathered is that there is ongoing construction to renovate the premises. In fact, one of the major concerns that was raised by officials of the Ghana National Fire Service was that this particular facility did not have a fire certificate, but the engineer on the site tells me that they are taking care of all that, the wiring and every other thing, so that this building can serve the same purpose that it served a year ago. For Joy News, my name is Kwache Afreniama.
The Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana is worried if government does not take drastic steps to help farmers who have lost their deposits in the microfinance scandal to recover their monies, the country could end up in a serious food security crisis. According to the programs officer of the farmer-based group, about 80% of those who lost their monies, especially in the Brunhafo region, are farmers involved in the production of food to feed the country. Charles Nyagba has been speaking with Joy News editor Martha Krenselakwa.
I think the situation among the farming communities in Brunhafo region is something that we should all be worried about. You know, already we have problem with financial services in the rural areas. In Ghana, we have between 100,000 to 420,000 people dependent on one bank in the rural communities. That's the bank-to-client ratios in the rural communities. So when these microfinance institutions begin to pop up and provide services in the rural areas, we were very comfortable with that because we thought that was going to boost agricultural activities. It was a way for farmers to save their monies with them because in the past, they used to keep their monies with them and sometimes fires and other things, they lose everything. So we thought that it was a good thing. Now, it turned out to be a different thing because to us, farmers, we think Bank of Ghana did not play their monitoring role effectively. If you go to Brunhafo region, as of 3 days ago, we have over 21 microfinance institutions closed down because of these illegal activities. Most of them were operating 2-3 years ago. DKM, for instance, was in operation in 2013. They were doing all these things, doing adverts on the radios, going around churches and everything, doing all that. Meanwhile, we have a monitoring unit on Bank of Ghana who are supposed to monitor the activities of these microfinance institutions and ensure that they don't run away with people's money.
So you are saying they failed?
I think Bank of Ghana didn't play their role very well, especially the monitoring role. Okay. And I think the unit on the monitoring in Bank of Ghana should be blamed for all what we are facing today. So that's one part. Now, this has actually affected our efforts to actually become food-secured nation. Now, if you look at 2015, most of the farmers actually sold their properties, or they sold their lands, or they sold their poultry farms, or they sold all what they've produced and kept these monies with these microfinance institutions. So actually, they couldn't produce much. So even if you look at the presentation made by the Minister of Finance on the floor of Parliament, you realize that the agriculture sector has recorded a slow growth as much as 0.04% in 2015. Yeah, so all this is a source of worry to us. And this is attributed to the fact that the crop stock sector, which comprises of people in those areas who could not produce much, has actually recorded negative 1.7%. And that has affected the entire growth. As we speak, a maxi bag, that's 100 kg of maize, is sold for 140 Ghana cedis in Techma. Last year, this time, the same bag was going for 70 Ghana cedis.
Wow. So
now,
the price now,
yeah, because this is the bumper season for the minor maize, minor season maize. And if already a bag is going for 140 Ghana cedis, imagine in May, June, what will happen? It means that we should be thinking of buying maize around between 200 to 300 Ghana cedis. Now, this picture, if nothing is done about it, we are seeing 2016 to even be worse than that. Because during my monitoring visit in most of the communities in Brown Half region, I realized that the farmers are just sitting down helpless. They don't even know what to start with. By now, they should have been starting preparing the land and then waiting for the rains to start planting. Yet they don't have anything to start with, because majority, about 80% of clients who put their monies with these microfinance institutions are farmers. So to us, we think we should move away. I heard many people say that these people are greedy. They were looking for higher interest and other things. That's why they went there. I do agree that financial literacy is a problem, especially in the rural area. But I also think that we could have done something. You know, most of these people, they travel more than 5 kilometers, 4 kilometers to come to the nearest bank. So when DKM, God is Love, Pentecost Fire, all of them, when they came on board, they were able to penetrate all the rural communities, going from house to house, going to churches to sell their products to them. So those who were having their monies with them, not necessarily because of the interest, but they just needed a place to keep their monies.
Citizen Ghana movement has dragged the Attorney General and Minister of Justice to court over the delay in retrieving the controversial 51 million cedis judgment that paid to businessman Alfred Agbeshi Woyome. A suit filed by the civil society group at the Accra High Court seeks an order from the court in the nature of a mandamus to compel the Attorney General to immediately go into execution of judgment of the Supreme Court. The CGM also wants the court to order the AG to take such lawful steps to confiscate the assets of Alfred Agbeshi Woyome. Lawyer for Citizen Ghana Movement, Nana Kwesiwa, he's joining me via Skype right now to tell us exactly what they are looking for, they're seeking from the Attorney General. Good evening to you, Nana Kwesiwa.
Good evening, Israel. How are you?
All right. Thanks for joining us for the bulletin. Now, explain to us what exactly you've done regarding this very latest suit.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, you would recall that sometime on the 29th of July 2014, in a case brought by Honorable Martin Amidou before the Supreme Court made a declaration that certain sums of money paid to Alfred Agbeshi Woyome were illegally paid, and therefore Alfred Agbeshi Woyome should refund those sums totaling 51.2 million Ghana cedis back to the state. Now, between then and December 2015, we found that there had not been any concrete steps taken. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Nana.
Hello? Good. There had not been any concrete steps taken by the Attorney General in order to execute this order, this judgment by the Supreme Court. And so for us, on the 29th of October 2015, that was last year, we wrote to the Attorney General to find out, requesting for a status update on the cases involving Alfred Agbeshi Woyome. It would interest you to know that our first letter dated 29 October 2015, the Attorney General did not acknowledge receipt of it, nor did we even get a response to that letter. Because of that, we were compelled to do our own investigations and our own searches, and it revealed that there had not been any concrete steps taken to enforce that judgment. Now, we wrote a second letter demanding that the Attorney General immediately goes into execution of that judgment, because what we found was that each day that judgment was not executed, or each day of delay, the value of the judgment debt against Woyome was depreciating. It was disturbing to find that between July 2014 and December 2015, the judgment debt of 51.2 million Ghana cedis had depreciated by 12.6 million Ghana cedis between that period, which means that each day that the Attorney General refuses or fails to go into execution, you would have the depreciation going down further and further.
All right, Nana Kwesi, and I want to believe that this latest action you've taken is to get the AG to do what you've been asking her to do all this while.
Yes, that is so.
All right, but isn't it a bit too late now? Because I'm sure you're aware of the very latest suit that has come up that is against, and the Attorney General has been named in this suit, where a Hohoe resident is seeking to set aside or to quash the rulings of the Supreme Court, earlier rulings of the Supreme Court on this particular matter. Does this latest action by the Hohoe resident not disable or not bar the Attorney General from taking any further action on this?
No, not at all, not in any way. It is tried knowledge in law that action does not operate as a stay of execution. It does not in any way tie the Attorney General's hands from going into execution of that judgment. It does not in any way do that.
When will this very latest suit you've put in be heard?
Come again?
This very latest suit you've put in, when will it be heard?
By the rules of courts, we are supposed to go back to court in about 3 weeks' time.
All right. Thank you very much, Nana Kwesi. We'll be following up on that as and when you go to court on the matter. Nana Kwesi is with the Citizen Ghana. He's lawyer for the Citizen Ghana movement. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break at this point, but we have more stories coming up. Please don't go away. You're watching Joy News Prime. Now, the United States Embassy in Ghana is denying reports that the 2 Guantanamo detainees transferred to Ghana pose a threat to the nation. President Mahama, also in his interaction with journalists yesterday, said the 2 do not pose any risk to the country. However, a report published by the New York Times and the UK Telegraph newspaper have revealed that the US government, at as far back as 2007, concluded that one of the detainees, Mohammed bin Atef, is a high security risk as he poses a threat to the U.S. and its allies. The information officer at the U.S. Embassy in Ghana, Sarah Steele, however, insists the 2 pose no risk to Ghana. He spoke to Evans Mensah.
President Obama, when he was elected, ordered a review of every detainee at Guantanamo Bay. So yes, everyone who was being detained went through this comprehensive interagency review that looked at all the information that we had on each detainee and made a determination about their eligibility to be transferred. Okay, it's important to make the point about eligibility to be transferred. You didn't say anything about whether they are a security threat or not. Did the document say anything about that specifically? A detainee can only be transferred if it's been determined that any threat could be mitigated by the receiving country. And so if there is any possible threat, then we talk to the receiving country and receive their insurances about their ability to mitigate that threat.
You're talking about our ability to mitigate, that's the key important word used there. But I want to return to some of the key things captured in this document that the New York Times and Telegraph published. There are some facts about bin Atef, though, that will not change, regardless of how much time has elapsed since the last assessment was done in 2007. And the last assessment, in fact, includes these facts that might not change and will not change, includes, quote, served as a fighter in the Osama bin Laden 55th Arab Brigade, and that he traveled to northern Afghanistan and fought on the front lines in Kunduz. Yesterday we heard our president say, that you told them, told us, our government, that they also did an independent assessment, that both detainees played, quote, no operational role in Afghanistan. Now, that certainly cannot be true, because at least bin Atef was on the front line fighting, according to the DoD document in 2007.
Again, it's our policy, as you know, not to comment on any alleged leaked classified cables. But I noticed that you said last assessment, and so I want to clarify again that no, the last assessment was the assessment that was done by the task force in 2009 and 2010. That looked at the comprehensive set of information. And so any previous reports would have been just one piece of that puzzle that the task force reviewed.
I get that, but nonetheless, as I stated, some facts about where he was, what he did, remains facts. Regardless of when you do that assessment, it will remain facts. And I'm putting that against what we've heard, that Atev never played an operational role in Afghanistan when he did.
Any information that we would have had on any detainee prior to 2009 would have been, as I said, just one piece of the puzzle, one piece of this comprehensive grouping of information that the task force looked at. And they looked through this and looked at the reliability of all that information to make a final determination on the detainee.
And I'm curious though, how does a person once assessed to be a high security risk, just 9 years ago, because of course, and this was done in 2009-10, so it will be 9 years exactly, that'll be 2 years, 3 years down the line. How does that person, assessed to be a high security risk, because he poses a threat to the US and his allies, including Ghana, who again had once threatened to slit the throat of US citizens if he's ever released, a man who once led 2007, this is a factual account, 2007 detainee unrest at Guantanamo Bay, who once had as many as 125 reports of disciplinary infraction against him while in detention, including assault. How does a person like that all of a sudden become a saint in 2016?
I don't think anyone has used the word saint, just to be clear. But again, this is all part of this process of closing down Guantanamo Bay, closing down this detention facility, and looking at each individual detainee, the information that we have, seeing if there are any threats that are posed. And the task force decision on these two men was unanimous and reflected the best predictive judgment of our senior government officials, that any threat that they might pose could be sufficiently mitigated.
Any threat they might pose, that is an admission that he poses some threat.
The task force decision is unanimous that they are eligible for transfer, and that any threat that they might pose could be sufficiently
mitigated. That is an admission that he poses some threat.
So,
that's an admission.
Well, Pressure Group Occupy Ghana is demanding answers to 23 critical questions on the two former Guantanamo Bay detainees currently living in Ghana. The questions, listed in a letter addressed to the Foreign Minister Hannah Tete, ask, among others, if Parliament or any of its committees at any point in time was briefed on government's decision to accept the detainees. The letter is the latest in a barrage of fierce criticism against the John Mahama-led administration's decision to accept Mohammed Omar bin Atev and Khalid Mohammed Salih Al-Dubi. Nana Saponga Jimang Bedu of Occupy Ghana has joined me in the studio with more on their statement. Good evening, and thank you for joining, for coming. Now, Occupy Ghana is asking 23 questions critical of the Foreign Minister. To what end?
Okay, I want to first of all greet all our viewers. We were a bit taken aback by government's decision to accept these guys into our country. So we decided that we have to get to the bottom of this, understand the rationale behind such a decision. Hence, we put out these questions to the minister.
You've listed a number of questions. I'm saying, when these questions are answered, what happens?
Well, when we answered, we would understand the government's position on why it did this thing.
Take us through some of the questions.
Yeah, for instance, one particular question, which is sort of related to what the US official was even quizzed on, has to do with why our government is agreeing to accept these guys from Guantanamo Bay, whilst the Americans are rejecting them from going on to the assault. So far, we've not had anyone justifying this kind of agreement. Also, we also want to know what's the legal status of these guys coming in. Are they coming in as refugees? Are they going to be here as prisoners of war? Are they being granted political exile? Whichever. We want to understand what is the legal status government has given to these guys. We want to know whether, whether they have residence permits, whether they have the right to work, permits to work whilst in the country, whether they will be granted a refugee status, whether they have an opportunity for family reunion, and whether they have access to public services like hospitals, schools, and whatnot. We also want to draw government's attention to the fact that the restriction of someone's movement in this country can only be given by a court of competent jurisdiction. That's by a court order.
So in effect, if these, you're just asking questions, if these questions are answered, would that be it for you, or you intend to take it in?
We will take it to a further step because we believe that there is somehow a breach in one of our laws. Those in our legal team are looking into that aspect, that there may be a breach in some of these laws in accepting these guys into our fold.
Has the foreign minister acknowledged your letter at least?
So far, no. We took the letter to her this morning, so we are yet to receive any formal acknowledgement.
All right. Thank you very much. Nana Sapong Ajimambedu is with Occupy Ghana, and they've written a letter to the foreign minister asking 23 critical questions on the 2 former Guantanamo Bay detainees currently living in Ghana. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break, but we still have the power issues to talk about and a number of other stories coming up. Please don't go away. But business news comes up after the break. It's time for business. That's what I'm saying. Good evening to you.
Hello, Israel.
All right. So investment income.
Yes. You remember yesterday President Mahama said that he had written to GRA to suspend the 1% withholding tax on investment so that if I go and buy T-bills and I'm earning my 22% interest, I'm not charged.
1% is not charged.
It's not charged. So today, apparently, GRA has given a directive to banks to ensure they don't charge.
So I saw the notice in the newspapers, but we've also been having this argument, or in fact, the banks have been saying that until the GRA actually started off by saying that until it gets formal notification, because it's an act, and so until they get formal notification, I don't know if that formal notification has been sent yet, because Parliament is still on recess.
No, but if the president sent you a letter, I think it overrides that. Because some of the banks were already going to be charging, but now that they've been told by the GRA not to, I think that it's good enough not to take effect.
Hopefully that
hopefully,
ends it.
Israel, hopefully.
All right.
Now, persons who invest in bonds, treasury bills, and other investment products can now be assured that they will not be taxed on the income earned. This follows a directive by the Ghana Revenue Authority for commercial banks to suspend the implementation of the tax. Details captured in this report.
Public notice released in the dailies today, the Ghana Revenue Authority is asking banks to suspend the tax. The action has been influenced by the submission of proposals by government to Parliament for the necessary changes to be made to sections of the Income Tax Act, which will result in the suspension of the 1% tax on income earned by individuals when they invest in treasury bills, bonds, mutual funds, and other investment products. Most of the commercial banks were still going ahead to charge the tax, despite an earlier press release from the Finance Ministry. They had argued that they would only suspend the tax when they get a formal communication from the Ghana Revenue Authority.
Inflation rate saw a marginal increase of 0.1% to record 17.7% in December compared with the 17.6% recorded in the previous month. So what were the main drivers for the marginal increase in inflation for December? Government statistician Philomena Nyako has been addressing the media.
Overall, the inflation rate for December 2015 was 17.7%. And the monthly exchange rate was 1.1%. And then when you look at the components of the inflation rate, we have food having an inflation rate of 8.0% and non-food 23.3%. And we also saw that the imported items had an inflation rate of 18.3% compared to the November one of 18.6%. And the locally produced items had an inflation rate of 17.5%.
I found it quite intriguing that December, for instance, where we were in the U-tide, a lot of things being imported, it didn't, go much higher. It's quite intriguing.
Yeah, the impact of the December activities will be reflected in the January release, January 2016 release.
Meanwhile, about $116 million of IMF funds should hit the Bank of Ghana's account before the end of this month. The IMF board met today to review Ghana's performance under the program. Joy Business is learning the board will approve the staff report for the funds to be disbursed within the next 10 days. This is expected to shore up the central bank's dollar reserves and help stabilize the cedi. The country's international reserves as at November 2015 stood at $5.7 billion. The current unrest in the microfinance industry has not in any way affected the operations of other financial institutions, at least for now. Savings and loans companies especially have over the years suffered what is deemed an identity crisis when such changes hit the microfinance sector. This tends to manifest in the form of panic withdrawals by their clients. However, checks by Joy Business indicates otherwise this time around. Let's first hear from the Managing Director of Bond Savings and Loans, George Ofusuhene.
Bond as a savings and loans company, I must be honest, we haven't seen any visible, signs of direct effect on us. But there are concerns that have been expressed. Yeah, as for that, you cannot ignore it, and we actually expected it. So we even started the process of being proactive and speaking to some of our customers and letting them understand, letting them know that what is happening is actually not in our industry, and also to convince them that Bond is still a very solid company and they should not worry about it. Some also did call, made this, took the trouble to come all the way to come and find out that this is what I've heard. And, I've heard that it's happening to all companies that are not banks. So, how do you handle mine? That is very expected, from anybody who's prudent. And it's the same kind of discussion that, has gone on at other places. But no savings and loans company that I am aware of has had any problems with, depositors, running to them asking for their loans, for their facilities.
The executive head of business division at Union Savings and Loans, Dominic Donko, also agrees, adding the microfinance brouhaha is a blessing in disguise.
Savings and loans company that has positioned itself as a leading brand for SMEs. Our customers are doing very good business. We have continued to have a strong growth in our deposit portfolios, especially in current and savings accounts, which is where any effect is likely to start from. So our business is developing very well. There has been not the slightest impact at all on us. If anything at all, we see it as an opportunity for customers to come and do more and more business with us after being aware of the different segments that we belong to as a service and loans company.
Meanwhile, banking consultant Nana Otue Champon is dismissing suggestions the crisis in the microfinance sector could also defeat the goal of roping more of the unbanked population into the banking sector. According to him, the crisis rather offers rural banks an opportunity to win over aggrieved customers. In a related development, the Ghana Microfinance Companies Association says it is engaging the Bank of Ghana to ensure the firms whose licenses have been revoked pay back depositors. Away from that, the Minister for Trade and Industry, Dr. Kospio Gabra, has hinted some banks may soon be regulated differently to support private businesses. According to him, his ministry has been engaging the Bank of Ghana in this bid and as part of measures to address the challenges businesses face with securing credit. He explained the move, which is to involve mainly development banks, would ensure the specific needs of industry are effectively met. He revealed this to Joy Business at the annual general meeting of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
There's a view by a number of financial banking and economic experts that at least 2 state-owned banks, which were set up in the 1960s with a very specific mandate to support agriculture, in the case of the Agricultural Development Bank, and to support industry, in the case of the National Investment Bank, by virtue of the fact that they've become what is generally known as universal banks, they've gotten universal banking licenses, have veered from those original mandates and are now trying to just make profits based on just general, banking, as well as mostly import and export transactions, rather than medium to longer term lending, which is what industry and agriculture require. If you are going to grow a crop, whether it's coffee, rubber, cocoa, cashews and mangoes, most of those crops take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years to mature and then to be harvested and to be processed, etc. So if you go to a bank which is only willing to give you 180-day money, or at best 1 year money, how do you use that for agricultural investment or agro-industry?
Still on trade, a coalition of businesses and stakeholders in the trade sector is making a push for government to ratify the World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement in 3 months. Ghana is yet to give its consent to the 2013 agreement, which is expected to harmonize and simplify trade among member countries. Meanwhile, government is said to be losing substantial business to neighboring countries who have already signed onto the agreement, a situation which has become an issue of concern to the coalition. Managing Director of the World Trade Center in Accra, Emmanuel Doni-Kwame, tells Joy Business how government stands to benefit if it ratifies the agreement.
We all met today to actually educate ourselves on what is contained in the agreement, at least since we represent so many members, bulk of the Ghanaian business community, to know what's in there. And it's also become urgent because we've realized that our neighbors, Cote d'Ivoire and Togo, have ratified this agreement. And we're losing a lot of business to our neighboring countries as a result of that. So there's the need for us to see what's in the agreement. And then also hold discussions with our Ministry of Trade and then follow it up with Parliament to get it ratified. But it's not just about ratification of the document, but its implementation, to see how find a way of monitoring its implementation, having our inputs in its implementation. That is, with implementation will reduce the cost of doing business as a result of the harmonization of most of our laws, and also reducing the procedures and the processes at the port, so that at least it will generate more revenue for government and will also save some money and then create more jobs.
And that's how we wrap up with business. But Israel just joined me. Israel.
All right. Okay. So
Israel.
Well, just some information I thought I should share. I just I just realized I had a text message from my bank saying that the 1% withholding tax on interest earned by individuals has been suspended. So I'll just read it as it is. Dear customer, we have been directed by the Ghana Revenue Authority to suspend the 1% withholding tax on interest earned by individuals.
Israel,
thank you.
The president is powerful. I told you. And that's how we wrap up, Israel. And that's how we wrap up. My name is Eton. I'm saying many thanks for your time.
Maintenance work at the Ghana gas processing plant at Otuabo would deprive thermal plants in the Boadze enclave the fuel they need to generate electricity for the 2 weeks that the exercise would last. Though this could result in a return of the severe load shedding that the country has become used to for the last 4 years, officials say alternate fuel has been procured to power the plant for the period to avert a worsening of the crisis. Managers of the country's power sector briefed journalists about the impending shutdown of the gas processing plant and its implications at a news conference on Wednesday.
As journalists gathered at the conference room of the Power Ministry here in Accra, one question lingered on many minds. What is the state of Ghana's power situation? The Ghana Gas Company had announced last week that our Otuabo gas plant would undergo mandatory maintenance works, which could result in a shortfall of about 600 megawatts in electricity generation.
We commissioned VRA to do some projections for us so that we can plan towards the future. And it may interest you to note that the VRA is indicated that we require about $98 million per annum. And please, let me repeat this, $98 million. That is almost $100 million per month, not per annum, sorry, per month. Let me reiterate that, per month, to procure fuel for the thermal plants. This translates into $1.18 billion per annum. And if you do the conversion in cedis, that takes you to about 4.5 billion Ghana cedis for this year alone. And so we have to work very hard and tirelessly towards raising revenue to the tune of about 4.5 billion cedis this year to procure fuel for the various thermal plants. Because the Akosombo Dam today runs at about 30% of its rated capacity. And taking into account the El Nino effect, it clearly tells us that from a policy point of view, we have to be preparing towards procuring more fuel for the thermal plants.
But this news conference was mainly to allay fears. According to the chief executive of the Ghana Great Company, William Amuna, the VRA had procured over 600,000 barrels of crude oil to keep the power plants running within the period, assuring that current supply levels should not be affected.
We have heard in the news that very soon Ghana Gas will be due for mandatory maintenance. That is supposed to take about 2 weeks. Now, if that happens, we could be losing over 600 megawatts because the plants in Abuazi run on gas from Ghana Gas. Now, we have put in place measures to ensure that adequate supply is maintained during this period. Now, during the period, VRA is going to run on light crude oil. And VRA has already procured 600,000 barrels of light crude oil that will be used to run the plants in Abuazi in order that we don't have any shortfall in generation for Abuazi during the period.
It's not clear when the current power crisis would be over, but at least the current situation, which the ministry itself describes as dicey, is unlikely to be affected by the shutdown expected at Atuabo at the close of this week.
Well, in a related developments, Ghana's current power situation could be described as dicey, even though recent investment mean the situation is barely stable. Chairman of the Load Shedding Management Committee, William Amuna, told journalists in Accra today that more investment is needed to maintain supply.
I'd want to confirm here that close to a month now, we have not called for any load to be shed in the country. Normally, GRIDCO would have to make a study, look at the supply situation and the demand situation, and inform the Load Management Committee. Then ECG will be called upon to execute the load that will be shed. But I'm happy to say here again that close to a month now, the document GRIDCO sends to the Load Management Committee indicates load shedding 0 for ECG, 0 for NETCO, and 0 for industry. That means that we are not shedding load at all. As indicated earlier on, there are various challenges also in our distribution network. So once in a while, you may have your area going up, but that doesn't mean we don't have enough supply. In fact, presently, we have close to about 6% more than we need. One would ask, what allowed us to get off this problem of load shedding? We had a 110 megawatt TICO expansion project at Abuazi commissioned and supplying power to the system. And for the many people who have been very interested in the batch, the car power project, we are well aware that it is delivering 225 megawatt into the system. In addition, there is yet another addition to the system, the Trojan project that is providing 25 megawatt of power at Tema. That is run on diesel. Now, if you add all this, then you would realize that we've added quite a big chunk of power to what we already have. There are other projects that are ongoing and expected to be completed within the year. In fact, very, very soon, all these projects will be on stream. We have the 220 megawatt Pontema power project. They have tested, actually injected some power into the grid system, and they are still going on with the commissioning process. We have a 360 megawatt project being undertaken by the Sunon Asogli power plant, and that is also very close to commissioning. We have the 38 megawatt VRE TT2PP expansion project that is also close to commissioning. The Ameri project. The Ameri project is about ready. Indeed, tomorrow we should be injecting the first phase of 100 megawatt by tomorrow into the system from the Ameri project. We have observed that the reserve margin is about 146 megawatts, which is only 5.9% of the projected peak demand. In effect, the system will be constrained if any unit has to undergo maintenance. So that means we have the supply, we have just a little more, but if one unit breaks down or goes out for maintenance, we may be constrained.
In other news, an Accra Circuit Court has remanded the 3 men arrested in connection with an alleged robbery incident involving a worker of the Kuala supermarket here in Accra, in which a taxi driver displayed remarkable bravery. The 3, including a worker of the supermarket, have been charged with conspiracy to commit crime. According to the prosecutor in the case, the 3 met a day before the robbery and hatched the plan with the suspected robbers and went ahead to execute it. The case has been adjourned to January 28, 2016. Meanwhile, the 2 suspected robbers are said to be responding to treatment after they were knocked down by the taxi driver and are expected in court at the next adjourned date. But also in relation to this story, the good news is that the taxi driver was promised a vehicle by Kuala supermarket, and that promise has been fulfilled. So there you see the vehicle and the taxi driver. He's knelt down and raised his hands in appreciation for the gesture by Kuala. Right, up next we bring you international news. Please stay tuned. Right, so what's coming up on Joy News Interactive? Aisha Ibrahim is here.
Israel, I must say you're looking very good this evening. Anybody told you?
Thank you very much. Well, nobody told me. You're the first person.
Okay,
and
I'm sure
the viewers
a lot of comments will come.
The viewers are also saying...
No, they haven't said anything yet. So the Attorney General and Minister of Justice has been dragged to court over the retrieval of 51 million cedis judgment debt paid to businessman Alfred Agbesi Woyome. A suit filed by civil society group Citizen Ghana Movement at the Accra High Court seeks an order from the court to compel the AG to immediately go into execution of judgment of the Supreme Court. This is what you have been saying about the matter.
If the court ruled that Woyomi should pay back that 51 million that's wrongfully collected or paid or something like that, why so long? And who need to enforce the laws for such a thing to be done?
And exactly a year ago, fire ravaged the central medical stores in Tema, destroying everything in the warehouse that served medication to lots of hospitals and pharmacies across the country. Although government assured Ghanaians of the details of the investigative report, nothing has yet been produced. We'll be talking about all of these and taking your comments as well on trending issues for the day. Remember, the interactive segment is brought to you by Airtel. Don't move an inch because you certainly don't want to miss this.
And certainly don't move an inch. We'll be back in a bit. Please stay tuned. Right, we're starting the second hour of the bulletin with a recap of our top stories. And electricity producers have assured impending shutdown of the gas processing plant for 2 weeks should not worsen the power supply situation. Pressure Group Citizen Ghana has sued the Attorney General over delay in retrieving judgment debt funds from businessman Alfred Woyome. Meanwhile, another pressure group, Occupy Ghana, is demanding answers to 23 questions on government's decision to host 2 former Guantanamo Bay detainees in Ghana. In business, Ghana.Revenue Authority directs banks to suspend implementation of tax on income earned from investment by individuals. And Peasant Farmers Association warned Ghana could be hit with a food crisis as a result of the microfinance scandal, which has denied many farmers access to their working capital. Right now, on to the rest of our stories. I will take a quick break before we bring the rest of our stories. All right, the Convention People's Party has started vetting its presidential hopefuls. The vetting process, which started today, will run until Friday. 4 persons will be vetted, including former party chair Samia Yaba Nkrumah. The rest are Joseph Ejepong, former presidential aspirant, Bright Akwete, and former General Secretary Ivor Greenstreet. Meanwhile, the party has rejected the candidature of Onzi Nkrumah, who claims to be one of Dr. Nkrumah's children. General Secretary of the party, Ni Amakrofa, has been explaining the process on the polls.
When the fees were set, there are many who felt that perhaps the fees were high. There are many in the party who argued that this is the way to get leading members or presidential aspirants to get back to the sort of values that Nkrumah espoused. Connect yourself to the people. Let the people then help you to file because they believe in you. And so many people have helped Honorable to file. Many people have made contributions. Yes, it includes some who are in positions.
Why is that? In a competition
well, I don't think there's a constitutional...
Why do you need to allow executives? I mean,
I don't think there's a
already shakes the ground and causes an uneven playing field for anybody who wants to contest.
I don't think the Constitution, our Constitution bars any such people having their favorites. And I don't think that there's anything that shows that somehow there's going to be a biased process. The vetting committee is not constituted of the executive of the party. The delegates are not, the delegates will come and they will vote. So, but it doesn't stop individuals from having their personal choices. And sometimes their enthusiasm for candidates may come out. But I think it's about confidence in the process, which guarantees everybody an equal chance, and that is quite clear.
I will tell you why some people have issues with this, because if you have executives who are expected to be referees in a Congress like this, openly, paying money for a specific candidate, it's easy for anyone to say that you're creating an uneven playing field.
I think it's a contribution that any individual, perhaps maybe the only error is that they are not making it. They are not making it secretly. But I think it happens. I think people have their choices. Perhaps they make their contributions secretly. In this instance, one individual feels that strongly about the candidature and wants to be publicly seen to be contributing, just like all the other young people who are making the contribution. That he's also lending his contribution to the process. You know, but I think, as I've said, the wider picture is to look at the process as a vetting committee. It's a constitutional requirement. It's not the leadership who are vetting. Beyond that, it's delegates who are going to vote. It's not the leadership who are going to vote. Everybody has equal chance to go around the country, appeal to delegates, campaign to delegates, whatever. Indeed, if you want to buy the delegates, all of these issues that go on, the leadership is not seeking to stop anybody from doing and connecting with the delegates. So I don't think that is a serious issue.
You are saying there's no issue at all for the party, that executives can pick money and pay for a preferred candidate?
I think that is not a serious issue. I think that many people have said that, if you want to support a candidate, don't do it publicly. And I think that issue has been dealt with.
And it was done publicly?
Yes, I don't think it's a serious issue.
And the party is not doing anything about it?
The person has been spoken to, that this is not the way to go about it. But I think that, sometimes enthusiasm that some candidates generate causes others to want to show their support. If it brings up any issues, it's been dealt with.
Dealt with as in person spoken to, sanctions put in place?
Because there's no constitutional basis for which to sanction somebody. The Constitution doesn't bar you from showing your support publicly. You may argue that you shouldn't do it because it's the right thing to do, but if you want to punish somebody, you need to have a clear basis. And all we can do is to discuss it with the person to say, you really shouldn't do it this way. You couldn't do it that way because it's, but there isn't a punitive process set down which says if you show your support publicly, we're going to sanction you. So we've done everything that we need to do to ensure that people do not support candidates publicly.
Okay.
But it happens. Everybody has their choice.
What would you say to people who say that Dr. Abu Sakara Foster was someone you marketed in the last election? In fact, for the past 2 elections, you've marketed 2 different people to stand for the party, and they've all left. What would you say to people who say the CPP is losing the kind of people you can market, invest in, and reap the benefits?
Well, I think that, I've heard the argument. I personally think that when you look at the trend globally, if you look at the Labour Party, for example, Ed Miliband loses the election and immediately resigns, because he knows that he has performed badly for his party. It's not about keep remarketing the same person who has performed badly. The person resigns honorably to allow others to come forward to take the mantle and take the party forward. So
it's been 3 weeks since a tragic explosion at an abandoned quarry site at Peabo resulted in 1 death. Several properties were destroyed, leaving many people displaced. Joining us is Jennifer Kwema visited the area to find out the current situation.
Today marks exactly 3 weeks since the quarry explosion that killed at least 1 person and injured several others in Peabo. But the destruction suffered is still visible everywhere. Structures have been graded according to levels of destruction: green, yellow, and red. Red paint indicates that the house is completely destroyed, whilst yellow and green paints indicate lesser degrees of structural damage. Those whose houses were completely destroyed are living with friends and relatives. Checks around Peabo by the team revealed that little has been done to repair the structures of the victims. For now, those affected are worried that when the rainy season sets in, they will be completely homeless.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Nana Akufo-Addo and also appeal to the ruling party or the president to come to our aid because it's long overdue. And I also use this opportunity to appeal to philanthropists, despite and people who has to come and then help us because we are seriously in need.
Na me rewo pa ntomo na na so wa ya de watima ba hweye to wa ya de 3 weeks obi antime mba ha na na time bad ndiama de abraya nyankopon na yese nyame nhira no pa
enene na otwemiensa asem atoyeche we to ye wa ha obie ni wa beboa yen wa ha ye tia awoni no ma ha yen nipa bebre ye yare no ma we koye hwini mu no ma ye yare obi a meboa yen enene na Akufo-Addo adaruma waba my cement 250 bucks and iron sheet 14 pieces ema yenso ye betime nya kakra de baye wenti ye stress ankrakra mu bi ebi wo mo nsem no omo meboa yen na ye asem emobo aba ne ye de ni to aba no so anya de obeboa yen ne abo yo chena
Some victims of Piabo lamenting their current state and seeking assistance. Meanwhile, presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has donated 250 bags of cement and 14 packs of iron sheets to help the residents rebuild their structures. The assemblyman for the area, Michael Vosha, expressed gratitude for the items and explained to Joy News how they would be distributed.
This is the headache now, to be honest. So what we plan to do is that we plan storage and setting up a committee where the committee will know how to do, and we'll get the names from NADMU where the right those people who are really affected will be given something.
Watching Joy News, we're taking a break. When we come back, entertainment.
Entertainment news.
Right, time for entertainment. Ms. G is here. Good evening to you, Ms.
Good evening, Israel. How are you doing?
I'm fine. But so I'm told of this incident in the...
Which incident?
In the control room.
I don't know anything about that.
The audio man was trying to mic you and essentially he was almost stripping you.
Really?
Yes.
It happened when?
Don't deny it.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Israel. I totally have no idea.
This is the kind of influence you're having on the audio man.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so you have that influence on them?
No, you have that influence on them.
I didn't know. You're telling me. You're telling me. Okay.
Right, let's get on with it.
All right, so Weiser was in court today, you know, after the indecent exposure sometime back in December last year. Yeah. He reappeared before court today, and we were there. But there was no case because, you know, the prosecutors couldn't produce a witness, so the case had to be adjourned. You could see Weiser walking all around there in court, but nothing happening.
They couldn't produce a witness?
Yes. So the case has been adjourned.
I mean, there's several people who were at the auditorium or the...
Yeah, they couldn't produce a witness.
They couldn't get anyone.
And so the case has been adjourned.
How about the video evidence?
Well, I wonder what's happening with that. You know how things work, you know, but hopefully 25th is just next week, so I think next 2 weeks or so. And
they're hoping to, you know, bring in a witness at that time.
Hopefully. We get to have a witness in court and then Weiser can know his state at that time, you know. You could see him walking, you know. Yeah, you could tell me he was just walking leisurely and... I'm sure he's like, when would this be over? I'm tired of this already. Yeah. You know, like, how many times do I have to tell people I'm sorry? You know.
He probably can do a song.
No, he did a song. And you know, the part of the song...
A sorry song?
Yes, a sorry song. And the part of the song that is funny to me is, how many times do I have to tell you I'm sorry? Like, we went begging him to tell us he was sorry. I'm like, guy, who asked you to say you're sorry? If you're not ready to say you're sorry, it's not like it's by force anyway. But we can only wish for the best for Weiser, you know.
Look for the song. You should play it.
Okay.
Yeah. So people will know that he's really sorry.
Yeah. So today, we woke up, we came to work, we went on the internet, and there was Gitmo in Kumahu.
Yes, I saw that.
You saw that?
In fact, it's on my Twitter. I just posted on the Joy News Twitter handle. If the producer can just get to it, like now, you can get to see the... Okay,
we have
so
that's as well.
That's the image.
Yeah, that's the image. So, Gitmo in Kumasi, Guantanamo 4 Wakrum, Omu Wakrumpa, and, you know, out of curiosity, we had to speak to Akrobetu, who is one of the people we see in the cast, and he denies knowledge about this production. He says, there's nothing like this. He doesn't know about this production. He hasn't been called to come play any role in this movie. So, Guantanamo for Beer and Ukrum, you know.
So, when I saw it, I thought, okay, cool. I mean, Kumawood is pretty fast when it comes to these things. Because really, it doesn't take them, you know, like a year to do a production. You know, they could do a production
within hours, you know, they're done the production.
Yeah, so I wasn't surprised when it came up and I was like, really, is this a serious movie?
It's not.
But I knew that, you know, people also get onto social media and poke fun. And
Ghanaians, we love a lot of humor.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody just woke up one day and said, okay, let me do this thing now, I'll catch the attention of everybody. And sure, the person got everyone's attention.
Because the picture has gone viral.
It has.
Lots of people are sharing it.
It has.
So, but what? Akrobetu says no.
He has no idea about this production. No, he wasn't invited at all. Nothing. He knows that Chewa also has not been called to come play or act any role in this movie.
So who are the characters in the movie? Because the images on that poster.
And the poster would just, tell who the characters are, but in reality, there's no movie like that.
Because I'm seeing two guys sitting down there, and I'm wondering, okay, so if they could have picked Akrobotu from somewhere and photoshopped his image, and they brought in Chewa to, how about the other two guys who are there, and the lady who's crying, and there's one also lying down?
Technology, the power of technology, I guess.
Guantanamo
One and two, it's not just part one, no. They have part two as well. But guess who is also yearning to be in Parliament?
I don't know. I mean, I thought everybody else is in Parliament.
Oh, no. He wants to go to Parliament on the ticket of the PPP. And he's called Salinko. He's a Kumahood actor. I'm sure you have seen him in a lot of these Kumahood movies, And he's talking about the fact that he's always loved the presidential candidates of the PPP, Papa Kwesi Indum, from infancy. And he thinks that it's a better way, to also bring some shine to his community, which is represented. So Salinko wants to go to Parliament.
And do big and better for my constituency. Through MPship, I learned, or I know I can do something better. And being a good patriotic person, I followed Dr. Papa Kwesi Indum since the Fourth Republic of Ghana when he was CPP flag bearer. I love him because of his good works he has been doing and done for Ghana. This man has tried many times in terms of being a president of Ghana. Hence, he's not getting it. But still, he do good for Ghana. So I love him since my infancy. And now I've had the chance to stand for him as an MP on his behalf.
Right, so how popular is he? Do you think he stands a chance of winning?
Well, that I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if he does stand a chance of winning, but I hope to see more comedy in Parliament. So if he wins that's good enough for the parliamentarians, Well, I don't know. But let's move on to other stories. Of course, we've been telling you of the fact that Shatta Wale has told everybody that his fans have pressured him enough to file nomination. Yes, today he was at Charterhouse to actually file nomination. Our cameras followed him actually.
I came to submit my forms for the music awards, which I feel I qualified to, and so I was just doing it because of the fans, because my fans were like, we should submit it this year, so at least we could, go to VGMAs as well. So I came here basically to submit my forms.
All right, and how did it go?
It went well. It went well.
I'll be your leader forever and ever. I'll be your teacher forever.
Shatta Wale comes to you like kakai.
I mean, saw the way I don't know whether it's his aide or bodyguard opened the door for him.
Kakai is coming, so
to
we have
drive.
True.
Typically when they open the door for you, you're sitting in the back.
No, this one, he opens the door for him to drive, just to prove that the car is his, Anyway, but still on the Ghana Music Awards, we used to have a category called the Gospel Album of the Year. Now, the Charterhouse, which is the organizers and PRO for Charterhouse, George Quay, tells me that there are intentions and calls for that to be scrapped because the album of the year, that's the gospel album of the year, is the only album of the year that stands on its own.
Right.
And the other people are crying because, if it's gospel, it's either it's with the rhythm of reggae or high life. So why do you make it stand on its own as if it has a different rhythm altogether? Okay. So a lot of people have called for it to be scrapped. As well, I tried to find out from him if, Gasmela's cover, which is the Yewo Chrome, qualifies. Yes, he says, covers are entirely new songs. That's how they see it. So they can't be bothered if Gasmela cannot file nomination, but Yewo Chrome can file nomination.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, that's bad.
Be scrapped. One category that came up strongly was, for instance, the Gospel Album of the Year category, which all the pundits except for one agreed that if you look through the category list,
there is no High Life Album of the Year category. There's no Hip Life Album of the Year category. There's no Reggae Dancehall Album of the Year category. There's only Gospel Album category. If the Gospel albums are that good, why don't they go and join the Album of the Year category where everybody else competes? Why should you create a separate category for them? But then again, there's also the school of thought that I've always asserted that when you look at the nature of Ghanaian music, most of these other genres are not really releasing albums. Most of them drop singles. For instance, in the year under review, an artist like Shatawale has reportedly released about 93 singles, not an album. But when you go into the gospel arena, almost all the gospel artists that have released in the year under review released albums. So that is the argument for and against. The ultimate decision body for the VGM is the board. Make a decision on that.
Of course, we've had this discussion already that Gasmela's Telemo will not even make it to the list because it was not.
All right, so let me get this thing very clearly. Gasmela's Telemo, the original Telemo, cannot
file for nomination because it was released in 2014, the latter part of 2014, but it became a hit in 2015. And this year's award is looking at songs that were released from January 2015 to December 31st.
Ouch.
So Gasmela's Telemo doesn't stand a chance.
That's what you meant by the cover for Telemo could actually pick an award.
Could actually pick an award. He could actually file for nomination and he could get an award, but Gasmela will not be able to ever get an award again from the Ghana Music Award. That's sad. That's sad. But talking about Shatter's nomination that he filed today, we spoke to George concerning. He says, well, they welcomed him, and of course, he looks at the case between Charterhouse and Shatawale. It's a totally different one from this nomination he's filing for. So they'll handle it differently, and they're still in court. So that's just the update on what Charterhouse had to say about Shatter's filing for nomination.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Miss G. Miss G bringing us the entertainment as usual and all the hot gossips. We're taking a break, after which we bring you Sports with Gary Smith.
Entertainment news was brought to you.
All right, Gary has joined me. Good evening to you, Gary. Good evening, Israel. What's coming up?
Well, a bit of boxing and a couple of tributes to the, Alloway, the
Coach
guy,
Alloway.
Coach Alloway, who died at the weekend, and also Sepp Blatter, Jerome Valke, who has been sacked, and then we get some updates from the Barclays Premier League. Liverpool are leading Arsenal.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So that's it for now. Hello and welcome to the sport here on Prime. I'm Gary Smith. Ghana is a hub for boxing. We've produced world champions over the years, but in a while we haven't. And the president of the Ghana Boxing Association feels that he knows why this is so. Boxers in Ghana are talented, but they need to knuckle down and be disciplined. That's what Peter Zwenes is saying.
We have the talent, you understand me? We have the talent, except that I always keep telling people that to be a world champion is not just a matter of the talent. You need a lot of discipline, and you need to be an extra, talented boxer. That is why I keep making the point that I use Axuma Nelson as an example. He was not just a champion, he kept the title for so many years. If you are not that talented, you may be that good, and you may become a world champion. But if you are not that talented and disciplined and dedicated, you lose the title in no time. And you've seen it happen to some of our boxers. As I said, we have young ones who are very talented. We have some who are knocking on the doors. Richard Comey has a final elimination coming up. In the world ratings, I know Frederick Lawson is still there. Emmanuel Tego is in the ratings. Rafael Menza is in the ratings. Quite a number of them, you see. And with the necessary guidance, the push, they can go places. But I keep saying that if you don't have that extra talent and that discipline and commitment, if you are not cast in the championship mold, you'll get there, but you won't be a champion. But hopefully.
Peter Zwenes speaking there. He also paid tribute to Godwin Nija Nikote aka Aloe, who passed this weekend. We will go now to Spain, where Neymar, the Brazilian and Barca superstar, has been asked to appear before court for alleged tax fraud. You would recall that because of his very complex third-party ownership deal with an agency called DIS in Brazil, he was transferred from Santos to Barcelona amidst a lot of problems. Now, the agency DIS are demanding Barca to pay reparations and a lot of money back to them, and the two are in court. And Neymar has been asked to come together with certain key people in his family, as well as Barcelona, to check out the matter. In Italy, AS Roma have sacked their manager Rudy Garcia. He's won just 1 in 7 games, and his time's up. In the Barclays Premier League, it's an amazing evening, really. I'll bring you some of the scores here, but Andre Ayew has finally scored again, and we'll bring you some of the interesting ones coming up. So Andre Ayew's Swansea are leading by 2-1. He scored the goal that has taken them into the 45th minute, and they are leading. Elsewhere, we have Liverpool 2-2 Arsenal. If we can click it to get the details of that game. Liverpool 2-2 Arsenal. We know that Joel Campbell has been superb. Olivier Giroud missed a sitter, and the goals came from Aaron Ramsey and Giroud, and as well as Roberto Firmino having 2 goals for Liverpool. So that's the latest for that one. Chelsea are also drawing 1-1 with West Brom. Man City 0-0 Everton. Southampton 1-0 Watford, and Stoke City 0-0 Norwich City. And Spurs are also playing 0-0 with Leicester. In the NBA, in our final stories, the Lakers beat the Pelicans 95-91 in a dramatic game, as the Mavericks also lost painfully to the Cavaliers 107-110. 8-game winning streak for the Cavs, looking good. That's it for the sport for now. You can get more on myjoyonline.com/sport, especially with the Barclays Premier League results. Reminder again, Liverpool 2-2 Arsenal, Chelsea 1-1 West Brom.